Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of the Social Work Rants Podcast. I'm your host, Bass Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. Follow the podcast on Instagram at the Social Work Rants Podcast. That's all one word. Follow the podcast on Twitter as Social Work Rants. Hit the like button on Facebook, aka Meta. Type in the Social Work Rants podcast. Hit the like button. Also hit that red subscribe button on good old YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast. The podcast has been growing at a good pace on YouTube. So if you enjoy watching podcasts, hit that subscribe button. Or if you listen to the podcast is available on all audio platforms. So gracias a todos por su apoyo. Thanks everybody for tuning in, tapping in. As I record this Friday afternoon, usually on the 4th of November, releasing it same day. Thanks for your patience. Usually these podcast episodes are recorded every Friday, not by 9 a.m. The episode drops. So I'll be tired. There's no way around it, especially waking up at 4 a.m. or between 4:30 every day, and gotta leave my house by 6:15 to get to work at about 7:30. It's an hour and a half commute, and come home and it's like 8:30, 9 o'clock. About 9:30, I'm like wiped out most times. So that being said, so that, I still on Friday got to drop these episodes, be consistent, follow through. Many of you enjoy listening to the podcast and learn stuff, learn from the podcast, or just like to be entertained while learning stuff as well. Um, so I appreciate again all the love and support, and really truly appreciate everyone for your support of the podcast. That being said, this week's episode here in America, uh, uh, it's election day coming up next Tuesday, whatever date that is. That's the 8th. Um, early early voting is happening. A few started already the old early voting. Kudos to you. Election day is coming up on Tuesday. Um, but before I get into that, this episode of the podcast is brought to you by good old Bass City Entertainment, your home, your online home for holistic self care for social workers and mental health professionals using poetry and Zumba with the book Trying Through Pain, How to Maximize Your Full Potential During Hard Times, 30-page poetry book discussing grief, loss, anxiety, self awareness, and financial literacy that I wrote during the pandemic or released it this summer. For those who purchased the book, thank you very much. Uh, Please leave a review on Amazon. The book is available on paperback and on Kindle. And so I appreciate all the love, support. Appreciate the feedback. Please leave a review if you got the book, and the book is available. And with the holidays coming, it'll make for a excellent Christmas gift. Hint, hint. And also check out Latinx and Social Work Volume Two. That book is out. It's the number one bestseller on Amazon. Juicy book. Um, I'm still like halfway through the book myself. So definitely had a pleasure of being one of the co-authors of the book. And yeah, so I've been busy this year, and I'm trying to do, or at least in my head, have an idea of doing a course for the end of the year, and it'll be catered to MSW students and like anybody who's been working in the social work field for within the last 5 years. So MSW students and students up to 5 years of experience post masters. So I'm if I get it together and actually sit down, make time and organize it, plan it out, and do that. So that's in the works, or if not, definitely coming in strong 2023, uh, doing doing some sort of training or talk about it. So with that being said, election day, and shoot, even before I go to, um, I'm trust me, I'm going to like link the two together. So this month, November, shout out to the homie Chris Scott for even reminding me of this because I totally forgot. November is Men's Mental Health Month. So shout out to all the men that listen to the podcast, that support the podcast. Yeah, there's not. Thanks to Instagram and Twitter, there's like many more men. Um, that are social workers, mental health professionals that some I even got the pleasure of meeting in person that I've interviewed on the podcast. Um, and thanks to Latinx and Social Work Volume 2, is Latino Latinx males that I got to meet in person and share a book with, a best-selling book with. So um, shout out to us men that's in the field, shout out to my men in general. So I know women get all the love, and rightfully so. I'm raising a beautiful young woman, and I'm married to a beautiful woman that always had my back. So Men's Mental Health Month, and going into election day. So I know, depending what state you're in, and again, I'm focusing on the good old US of A. So to all my listeners are viewers that uh, either watch the podcast or listen to the podcast that do not live in America, this is not catered to you. So unless you got an election coming up, then yeah, by all means, this is for you. But I'm focusing on my fellow Americans. And election day is coming up on Tuesday. Early voting is happening. We advocate for our clients to, if they're willing and able physically to vote, to register to vote, and actually go out and vote. We got to do that for ourselves. And I know, especially within the last few years, we have seen a bunch of social workers, Trump supporting social workers, or social workers that go against the values of the code of ethics. So we have clearly seen that and showing their true racist selves, even though they're licensed social workers, which is kind of dangerous in the field. So we gotta get out. We gotta show out. Big races like New York got a race for governor. Um, my my forever home state. Um, both candidates are trash. So Pennsylvania is a hot state. We got Fetterman and Dr. Oz, both both candidates are trash, especially Dr. Oz. And then we got my new state of Delaware. We got a couple of interesting races, and like local races that affect, since Delaware is a small state, it affects how like the budget, um, how the funds are allocated. So those races are just as important that big races like governors or mayor or now Biden still got a year, almost 2 years left. So um, and speaking of the Mr. T, call him Agent Orange. I saw today that as of today's recording that he's thinking about running again and willing to formally announce his candidacy once again for president. So the U.S. has had a year and some change to add tons and tons of evidence to arrest this man for everything that this man has done, especially on January 6th. And like, I can't arrest him. It's like I don't understand. Now he's gonna run, and I got no faith in Biden Harris ticket um, winning re-election. So that's my take on that. So it's important, and I go back to men's mental health and just mental health in general, because when Trump won in 2016, it was just a sadness, well, and like it was like this eeriness during that day, like it reminded me of like the sadness and eeriness of 9/11. Then again, I'm not, we had almost 3,000 people pass away, so I'm not comparing like just the overall like tone of the day. Like it was just like, really, this motherfucker won. Like, sorry, YouTube for cursing, but and the Democrats did it to themselves, by basically screwing Bernie Sanders out of the nomination, because Bernie galvanized all these 18 to 25-year-olds and were backing him up, and they're like, they just like, Bernie, we gonna let Hillary rock, and like, she been Secretary of State, she was done this, done this. Like her resume would qualify her to be president, and between so many people voted for 45 to have him win, and Russia uh, messing with the election. So, and the Democrats, screwing Bernie over. So it was just all that needs to say. So our mental health was definitely tested that day. Our mental health has been tested the last several years, and more so if you person of color, if you're African American, Black, um, some Latinos. I'm not gonna say all, because like I know many Latinos who are diehard Republicans, even though Republicans go against most things that would benefit us Latinos. So we got um, senator in Florida acting a fool, and the senator in Texas acting a fool, and um, we got governors unfortunately shipping migrants, Latinos to other states for political gains, and it is a hot mess. And we still vote for these people to for office. So Florida got a governor's race, and we need to get Ronnie D out of there. I call him Ronnie D. We got to get him out of there. Um, and right now, as of this moment, he's the only other possible candidate, Republican candidate for president. So, and he hasn't made any guarantees that he's going to stay Florida governor if he wins on Tuesday. So we don't need him as president. And I know people uh, who love him, Latinos who love him. So um, let's go to show you where we are as a nation, as a country. Like for me, I'm the type of person like I could agree to disagree and keep it pushing, but if you really go against like my values and what I believe in and how I conduct myself and how I try to raise my family, then like you know I'm gonna have to like push you to the side, and like no, I can't rock with you. But besides that, we could agree to disagree and keep it pushing. And I think that's part of the problem in our country, that we forgot how to agree to disagree and keep it pushing. We're just fighting and arguing and cursing and killing each other over personal beliefs and or values or lack of values. So, which we got going back to mental health and everything that's been going on last few years of you know George Floyd being murdered, Breonna Taylor, and we find out as a whole cover up regarding the police department. So regarding her murder and hurricanes, and we got celebrity deaths, and most recently, if you're a hip hop head, especially the hip hop head of like this generation, take off from the group Migos, best-selling group Migos, out of Atlanta, shot and killed, and I wasn't even I'm not a big fan of Migos. I like a couple of their songs, but that like hit me hard. Like really, like, and I went to Atlanta this summer, and like a block from the hotel that I was staying at, they got a big mural of several rappers, and Migos, the group was like front and center of that mural. So definitely a huge blow to the community in Atlanta. Talking about Atlanta, no, the big governor's race down there. So that being the said, that all that to say that voting is important. We got to get out the vote, and if our candidate, come Tuesday or days, weeks after, like the 2020 presidential election, we didn't find out until like after January 2021, and we already know what happened. Like I said, early January 6th. So, depending on your state, depending on your political beliefs, you might be celebrating election day the day after, like, because your candidate you voted for won, or you might be really, really upset and pissed off that your candidate lost, and or a certain laws that are were put in place or have been put in place, like the Roe versus Wade overturned, and all this stuff. So there's a lot of stuff out there, and it's important to get out the vote. And if we um, are brave enough and bold enough to tell our clients, like, did you register to vote, and help them register to vote, and then you might work at a job that you may have to escort a client to a voting booth, and get them to vote, or do mail-in ballots and help mail the ballot so their vote can be counted. Then we got to show up ourselves to get out the vote. Um, so it's definitely important. We gotta do what we say, and we don't always do that in social work. So, and go back to our mental health. We actually helping clients out and advocating and doing that. And we got to protect our mental health as well. So, I always say we only control what we can control, and we can't really stress out too much stuff we can't control. Like um we can only control our vote, and we go out there and vote, and we hope that at least thousands and thousands, if not millions of people vote the same way you do to get uh, stuff done. And there's cities and towns, and that it doesn't matter who the candidate is. The just overall systemic racism that exists will continue to exist, because we got a recession going on, and that affects our mental health, because gas is like through the roof, and like food is expensive, and you got people paying like so much money in rent, and light bills expensive. So it's just a lot going on, and stock market falling apart, and who knows how this recession that we are in, even though the government continues to refuse to say that we are in a recession, and but we are in a recession. And I think back to 07, 08, how it affected social work, and it'd be interesting to see how. when many people now can work from home doing social work stuff, how uh, recession that we in now affects social work now. So um, I think I brought it up in the podcast in the past. If not, I definitely tweeted about it, or I'll definitely put it out there. Working in New York, there was a lot of foster care agencies and also preventive service agencies that prevent kids from going back into foster care. A lot of in New York, during that time I lived in New York, a lot of the agencies lost their contracts. And even some HIV programs lost their contracts, and some social service agencies were forced to close as a result of the recession. So we, of course, there's always social work that's like lack of resources, and people need this, and there's the resources are scarce. So it'd be interesting to see if there's local agencies that are going to be forced to close, or what have you going on. So for your MSW for students and first few year students that listen to the podcast, definitely like if you work at a job and you see from a business side, like companies expanding, like that's kind of a red flag. I would like ask questions as to like where the funding is coming from. Because yes, the government is giving out contracts and stuff like that, and be like grants out there. Or the government has money to give out in most cases, but even in job interviews, I've asked like, okay, where's the funding resource come from? Because in the past I've been laid off. In the past, I've had to deal with being furloughed for a day during the summer, like having like Fridays off, but don't get paid for that Friday. So I've been in situations that like go to the next job, and that'll be one of the questions I ask, like, oh, you guys, where's your funding coming from? Because I don't want to be like in a grant funded position, or like things that, even though I'm in a grant funded position now, but it's pretty stable for now. And COVID has proved that no job is safe. So it's up to a company to kind of like pivot. That's like the 2020 word, the pivot, and help um, you know, well, these companies out there to try to save a dollar anywhere they can. So just be mindful of, you know, or I've had a job where a company was blowing $1 million a month, and they were straightforward and told us that. Um, so when they said that, it was time to go. So it was time to look for a job, and just if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Like the saying goes. So that goes back to your mental health, like people, the quote unquote the job security, and there's no such thing as job security. You could be comfortable or try to act comfortable at a job, but there's no such thing as job security, and you gotta do what you gotta do, and especially if you got a family, you gotta do what you gotta do for your family by any legal means necessary. So uh, that for all the ladies that have no boyfriends or husbands or boo, like make sure you big them up this month and every month. Since this month is Men's Mental Health Month, show them some love, take them on a date, or if you want to spend Sunday watching sports, watching football, Sunday just let him be. Um, definitely treat him, and vice versa. You get ladies need to be treated well as well, and that goes for same sex couples too. Treat your boo well, and do and just have some fun. Men need love too. So um, yeah, let's get out the vote this month. This really wasn't my planned episode for this month. I had a guest in mind, and unfortunately, life be life, and we had to reschedule a couple times already. So, but it worked out that hey, it's election day coming up, and it, one thing about podcasting, and I'll end with this. Um, that I'll be stuck. What the heck do I talk about? I want to release an episode, and the thoughts be in my head like I got nothing to talk about. I guess I won't release an episode this week, but even though I do, and then life just happens, and there's always something going on, whether it be good and bad, and can relate it to mental health, related to social work. So that being said, get out the vote. My fellow social workers, be on the lookout for voter suppression that may be happening in your areas. Make sure you report that. I'll be on a lookout myself, and these small towns within the towns in my state, and see what happens on Tuesday. And whatever happens on Tuesday, we gonna be all right, and we gonna keep on pushing. If we survive 4 years of Agent Orange, we gonna survive Tuesday, and we get through it. And if not, we go on Zoom, or we tweet, and or we go on IG and rant and rave. So that being said, till next time, take care. Peace, y'all.